Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to start a step-by-step series on how to Hellcat or Scat Pack swap an older Magnum, a Charger, or a 300. So originally I did the Scat Pack Swap Magnum around 5 or 6 years ago now, and it really paved the way for everybody else to come in and really just follow that video. And I've had a lot of people ask me, how did I do certain things? Because there was a lot of stuff that I didn't show because it really wasn't a step-by-step guide. So what I'm going to be showing today is everything that you have to modify on the chassis. So everything will bolt in from the Hellcat, including the coolers, or if you're doing the Scat Pack, there's a lot of differences. You might not have to add all the bracketing for the coolers. I do like to add the passenger side bracketing so I can run a Hellcat oil cooler on a Scat Pack. It just really drops the coolant temps. It also drops the oil temps drastically. So if you're doing a Scat Pack swap, I would recommend doing the Hellcat oil filter housing as well as the oil cooler and lines and all the ducting, because it will help keep the engine alive for a very long time. And since I have time, because I'm waiting on parts for the newer Magnum that I built, I am going to get this Magnum right here ready to put the Hellcat swap in. One of the first things I always modify is this antenna hole. So as you can see, it is a circle and then it has this little peg back here. This isn't really that important because it's not going to end up being used, but this circle needs to be changed. So as you can see on the Charger, Challenger, and the newer Durangos, they have a square peg that the antenna needs to go into this hole. So all you have to do is use a piece of tape, you trace it out, you're going to transfer the tape over to the Magnum roof skin, and then you're going to have to use a Dremel with a small grinder bit to make this hole the right size and get everything perfectly transferred over. Then you'll be able to use the newer style antenna. There's 3 different versions that you can use. So this one right here is a Challenger one. The Charger ones are a little bit larger, and also the Durango ones are even larger than the Charger ones. So this is off a Challenger. It is the lightest antenna that you can buy. And it's kind of funny, these little shark fin antennas, all that's in them is a tiny little circuit board. To make the swap work and to make all the sat nav and everything function correctly, you're going to need this antenna installed into your vehicle, especially if you want all the weather options and everything that the Hellcats have to offer. The next hole I'm going to have to modify, the wiring harness goes through right here in front of the battery tray. So this on the Magnums is a square or a rectangle instead of a circle, and you need to make this a circle so the wiring harness can pass through for the ABS sensors. If you have a Scat Pack or a Hellcat, it's going to have the active exhaust, or this is the active suspension, so you need this to be modified. There's a really easy way to modify this. Floor, I now have the 2-inch hole cut so the wires will pass through. Next hole that you're going to need to add is the hole for the fuel pressure sensor, and that is in the rear wheel well on the driver's side. What I like to do is line my hole saw up with this right here. Is you just pretty much ballpark it, just put your hole saw up against that edge. This is exactly where the factory one is, but on the Chargers and Challengers, they have a dedicated kind of raised lip, which it doesn't matter. It's a rubber grommet. It'll go in here perfectly fine. So the next thing we're gonna have to modify is this is where the brake line clips in on the Magnum, but on the Charger and Challenger and all the newer stuff, it has a threaded insert. So what I'm going to do is put an M6 Riv Nut in there, and I have to drill this out a little bit larger and then Riv Nut this in. And there's a few of these that we're going to have to do. Be able to transfer all of this and all of these clip locations over to the Magnum, the easiest thing to do is just tape off this area. Then you're just going to punch out all of these holes that you're going to have to drill. And you're also, there's a stud here, you're going to put a Riv Nut right here unless you have a stud tool, and then you need the hole for the wire clip. So just make sure to get all these holes in there. And then I'm also going to add this so the newer intake will be able to pull the full amount of air coming from the fender line. And all you have to do is lift the tape up and be very careful. And then this mark is the same on the Magnum. So all you have to do is mark that, and I usually don't punch it, and then I just line it up because it's gonna have light on the back side. Transferred over the template. This hole is perfect. This hole and this hole is the same. There is a stud here. Technically, you could run this wire up here to that stud, but the intake box seals right here. Now have all the holes drilled. I also cut the intake bottom slot, and as you can see, now we can clip all of the wiring harness in. It just goes in there, and then it goes in here, and then this comes up here. What I need to do now is the passenger side, and I need to do it exactly like I did on the driver's side, and I'm going to use this hole right here for the ABS pump, and I believe this hole is also on the Magnum as well. Now have the template transferred over, and you can see there are some similarities. So this hole for the ABS pump mounting is the same, as well as this hole. We have an oval here that's the same, and then over here, the pass-through for the windshield washer reservoir lines, it's a circle instead of an oval. You don't really have to worry about modifying that. Now that all the modifications are done in the engine bay, the next thing to do is to remove the front bumper so you can have access to the side of the frame rails. So this isn't as important if you are just doing a Scat Pack swap, but if you are doing a Scat Pack swap, I would definitely recommend doing the Hellcat oil cooler upgrade just for oil temp and coolant temp's sake. Once you have this wheel well modified, it's really easy to do the passenger side. So all you do is you use a factory charger, newer charger, windshield washer reservoir. And then if you're doing a Hellcat swap or if you're upgrading to the Hellcat oil cooler, this bracket's actually bent, but I need to order a new one, but I'll give you a good idea. So this just goes on the bottom of that holds the washer reservoir, and then it just goes into that little hole. There's one bottom bolt that you need to put in if you want to add it, but it's easier to do by just tightening the bracket down without the oil cooler or the ducting, and then you just get under there and you can drill that one hole. And that is not supposed to be underneath the bumper support. It's supposed to overlap like that. If it's overlapping, don't worry about it. It's supposed to be like that. Or another thing you can do is you can drill out the spot welds on a Challenger or Charger bumper support, and you could bolt on a newer bumper support. Then you don't have to worry about drilling any holes on the passenger side or the driver's side, because you need to drill some holes over there as well. It's pretty simple to get these off. It's literally like 4 spot welds. The last thing I need to add on the driver's side frame rail is the Riv Nuts for the Supercharger coolant pump and the driver's side Supercharger radiator. And there are 3 Riv Nuts, which they are the factory ones that go into a punched hexagon hole, which I don't have that tool. So I'm just going to use normal Riv Nuts, perfectly fine. And there are 2 similar holes. The first one in the front, that small one, and that large one in the back. Driver's side frame rail, we have the bracket for the Supercharger cooling pump, all mounted with Riv Nuts like it would be from the factory. No, they are not the factory Riv Nuts, but I don't have a tool to punch a hexagonal hole, so we just use M8 Riv Nuts. Works perfectly fine. The last thing I want to add to the back is the rear camera. Pull a template off the Charger trunk. So then all you have to do is center this onto the Magnum hatch. And how I like to do it is to go a little bit lower than this line. So to get this rear camera centered, you want to go from the edge over, and that's 25 and a half. And then over here, same thing, over 25 and a half to the inner edge where you're going to be cutting for the camera to fit in. The camera is now mounted. I really like this location. The only issue with it is it isn't the same shape as the charger trunk, and you have to heat this up with a heat gun a little bit, and you could only mount this with adhesive because on the back side there is a double layer of steel and it starts to turn, so there's no way to clip it in. The adhesive works perfectly fine after you use a heat gun, but just something to note. I now have everything modified on the chassis of the 08 Magnum, and I'm very excited about it because I cannot wait until the drivetrain is in the car and I could drive this car because it's just going to be a whole lot of fun. There are a few things that I'm going to do so this swap is correct. I do want to Raptor the underneath of the car. I'm also going to respray the engine bay, and then on the back hatch, like everybody knows on my channel, I do not like rear wipers, so I'm going to delete the rear wiper. I need to weld up that hole, and then when I paint the car, I will paint the hatch and you won't even know it was there. So I'm gonna end the video here. Hopefully this video helped a bunch of people out. People comment on my videos all the time of how can I put a 6.4 or 6.2 in a Magnum 300 or Charger or Challenger, and this is going to be a series of exactly how to do that. So this is episode 1. I'm guessing there'll probably be 10 episodes. There's going to be a whole episode on wiring everything up. But if you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.